Welcome to Beyond the Bricks, and this week we have our special guest Dan Firth from The Bid, and today we're talking about the modern method of auction. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So for listeners, Dan, who've never heard of the modern method of auction, first of all, tell us a little bit about that method of sale.
Of course. Well, I think first of all they'll probably hear the word auction, and for a lot of people probably scare the life out of them, especially if they've seen Homes Under the Hammer.
Yes.
And I think I'm sure we'll get onto it, but that's our biggest, I want to say blocker, but it's the biggest thing we have to overcome with agents and clients is what modern method of auction really is. It's a connotation of auction. I think when people think of auction, they think of fast, cash buyers, maybe run-down houses.
Hammers going down on the day.
And as you know, it's not that at all.
No.
It's very much around a method of sale that is suitable for a seller that wants something that's more secure and faster than the traditional private treaty route.
So talk us through the process of like the traditional agency versus the modern method of auction.
So traditional method of auction, as you touched on, is very much hammer down. Although a lot of that now is done online.
Yes.
Since COVID, a lot of the in-room auctions moved to online and just never came back.
No.
And just stayed online because actually people don't need to go to a room anymore to.
I think numbers were dwindling. Even before COVID, I think less people were in a room.
Yeah. There were, and it's and I think COVID just kind of forced that.
Yeah.
And said, well, you can just do just as good a job, if not better, if you can spread your reach out, and anybody can bid from any part of the world now. But it is still hammer down, and that unconditional auction is unconditional. You commit to buy that property on the day. So hammer falls, you pay your deposit, you exchange contracts, and that's it. You've legally committed. Then you have a short period of time then to go and complete the transaction.
28 days.
Typically 28 days. So it is very fast.
Yes.
So for some properties, perfect.
Yeah.
But what it does do, it rules some out. It rules some out it can't be that fast.
Yeah.
But actually, the biggest potential issue there is the buyer profile.
Okay.
Because you have to exchange on the day, and you've got to have your cash ready or specialist finance. You've got quite a small pool of buyers that have got that money ready to go and are experienced and maybe brave enough to say, I've read the legal pack, I want to buy it, and I'm willing to sign on the dotted line today and move forward. So you've got quite a small buyer pool.
Yeah.
The reason modern method of auction was launched and has grown rapidly over the last 5 or 6 years is because it opens it out to more people.
Yeah.
So it's still around certainty, it's still around speed, but you can buy, for example, with a mortgage, which you probably couldn't do unless you've got real sort of specialist finance there ready to go. You probably couldn't do it with a typical mortgage product if you were looking at the unconditional route. So first of all, modern method of auction, it opens it out to more buyers.
Okay.
As soon as you start opening it out to more buyers, potentially then you've got different types of properties that can be sold. So it is now not just your typical rundown empty houses where you might go, everyone have heard of stick it in the auction. Yeah. Stick it in the auction, get it gone. Modern method of auction isn't that.
No.
It's very much around the seller, and I'm sure we'll talk more around the kind of the seller motivation and what it is we look for. So
what type of properties traditionally fit into that modern auction method?
Yeah, and this it's a question we get asked all the time.
Yeah.
What's a good typical property for modern method of auction? The answer we always give is doesn't matter.
Okay.
I think if I think about this year, the cheapest property we've sold is 14,000.
Oh wow.
And it was a little terraced house in Blackpool.
Oh wow.
And then the most expensive was one that we sold with you actually at just under 1.4 million.
Yeah.
So you've got a real wide range of property there, so it's not property specific.
So it's more like, so if we use that example for us, when we I think it was the first property that we did with you, and our client needed speed, but he also wanted more control, I think, over the price. So if we would have put him into a traditional auction, he would have lost that control potentially, and therefore perhaps achieved a lesser price.
I think so, because the buyer pool at that level as well would have been even smaller.
Absolutely.
How many people have got £1.4 million cash just sitting around going, right, I'm willing to take a bit of a punt and exchange very quickly without understanding what I'm buying. I think there was a small buyer pool which potentially would have reduced what it would have sold it for. The seller motivation you've touched on there. So when we talk to clients, we're not necessarily interested in how many bedrooms the house has got, what condition it's in. It's what is it that you need as a seller from your estate agent? Like what is it you're trying to do? What you're trying to achieve? And we're asking questions around, it's a bit of a buzzword, but motivation. What is your motivation? Is it value?
Yeah.
Are you looking, or do you need to achieve top money? Is it peace of mind?
Yeah.
So I know that I've got a deadline and everyone's going to move towards that.
Yeah.
Or is it that sort of that fixed timescale?
Yeah.
Where you've got a date.
Yeah.
You've got your peace of mind, you've got your timescale, you've got your price. In reality, you can't have all three.
No.
And I think that's the biggest.
Yeah.
That's the education piece with the client is. Well, what is it? What's important? And if that seller in particular, his situation meant that he needed to complete by a certain date.
Yes.
He needed to know that could be was completed by a date, and he needed the peace of mind that it wasn't going to fall through. Because had it fallen through, he wouldn't have had the time to start again to meet the deadline.
Absolutely.
So if those two things are the most important factors, value then becomes less of the motivation.
Yes.
And we're saying to him, okay, so you might take a bit less, you will absolutely sell it for more if you go to private treaty, if you've got 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, maybe longer in the current
Exactly, but you haven't got that. So are you able to potentially accept a little bit less? We're still going to maximise the value within the realms of what we're working to.
Yeah.
But with the other two elements of the timescale and the peace of mind, that it's not going to fall through.
And based on that, do you find that a lot of your clients that come to you to have the modern method of auction come because they've already been on the market for a period of time, or do you find that actually now new instructions are coming to you? Because I think for us as an agent, we get to a stage where the client really wants to sell and we can see how motivated they are to sell, and actually, like you've said, price is important, but it's not as important as the need to sell. And that's why we bring you on board. So would you say the majority of your instructions have tried private treaty and it hasn't worked for them?
It's a real split, and I would say when we first start working with an agent, we get what I would say is the plan B, which is that, well, I've got these, I've had this on the market for 6 months, please help us please help us get rid of it. We need to find a solution for this seller, and maybe the motivations change where it started off as value, but as time's gone on now, actually it's just more around we need it gone.
Yeah.
And that's great. So we'd look at that and go, plan B, how do we relaunch that to the market with a new pricing strategy under the conditions of modern method of auction, and push it forward, which works really well. What we'll then find is the more we work with an agent, they start to get it.
Yeah.
And they start then to see how it works as a plan A. Yeah. And that's where the magic really happens. When you're an agent sitting in the living room with a client, really understanding what's important to them. You know, and not just going to that valuation as a sort of, I'm going to say, a typical estate agent, just pushing one method of sale. Yeah. You know, you and your team do it very well now. When you sit with the customer, what's important to you, and depending on what's important for you, we've got potentially 3 different ways that you can sell this home. Yeah. And then you give them the right one for them. Yeah.
I agree, and I think now, like you've said, now we're more experienced at it, we're definitely bringing it to the table as an initial option, and some people buy into that straight away because, you know, security and speed is their driver over price.
Well, it could be all sorts of scenarios, you know. I know we've spoken to clients for you where they may be moving abroad. So it's, you know, we're not looking for super fast. We don't need to be gone in 28 days, but we need to know that once we've packed all the stuff up, we can relax and book flights and start moving abroad. So there's lots of different things that we can look out for. But it does work really well. And there is an argument to say that you would achieve a better price at modern method of auction if you bring it straight to the market in that method of sale, rather than starting with a private treaty price. It hasn't sold, so the market's actually telling us that's not the price. It's not the market value, and then we're having to relaunch it at a real competitive price to get a new buyer pool. Whereas if it's fresh to the market, nobody's seen it, you can push that price a little bit more.
I would definitely agree with that. So what would you say the biggest misconceptions are around modern auction?
Property type. Property type. You know, we've absolutely. So I think my job is to talk to estate agents. And when I talk to the estate agent, generally I'll hear things like, doesn't really work in my town, doesn't work in my price bracket, people in my town don't get it, or the properties I sell are too nice for auction. And we understand why. It's because of that preconception of, I suppose, the A word, auction. Once people get their head around that, then they start to understand it. But that's our biggest objection we have to overcome is the house, my area, my location, my brand isn't auction, which is partly why we call it secure sale.
Yes.
because it's a much more positive connotation than auction.
Yeah. Let's just explain the process. Let's break it down. So let's say that we've got a property that we put into the modern auction. Talk me through that process.
So the first thing that we do is you as the estate agent would identify actually this seller potentially would benefit from something that was a bit faster and it's got a fixed deadline. So they know what they've got, that peace of mind, security and speed. You'd identify that. You'd then talk to our team. So you have your secure sale consultant in Kelly. You and Kelly would speak.
Yes.
And you'd agree actually what is the right strategy for this property? Because you're still the local expert, you're still the agent, you've sat in the living room, you've seen it, and we'd agree what that strategy needs to look like. And we're looking to identify two figures at this point. The first one is the reserve price, and that's the figure that we're saying to a seller. It's a bit of a safety net.
Yeah, of course.
We're saying to the seller, this is the minimum figure that you're going to be obligated to accept. So if we can generate bids and offers that go above that, we're going to sell it by modern method of auction. If we haven't got that, so if you've got your £1 million reserve and we get you bids up to 950, you don't have to take it. So there's some peace of mind there and a bit of control for the seller to know that they've got that safety net. They can accept it, but they don't have to, not obligated. So first thing we're looking to say is what's the reserve price, what's the safety net? From there then we have to think about the strategy to get people through the front door, and that's the guide price. So then you have your guide price, which is below the reserve price. And that's the advertised figure, that's the marketing figure. It's the one that people see on the portals, on the websites, and that figure is designed to create some intrigue, to look at it and say, that looks good value, it looks exciting, I want to go and see that. Because the concept of auction, whether you're talking about modern method, whether you're talking about unconditional, whether you're talking about eBay, the concept is get people competing with each other. If you can get people to compete with each other, naturally the property will find its market value. The market will dictate what it's worth, not you or I. But to do that, we've got to get people through the front door. So whereas a private treaty price, you might start high with a view of saying we're going to start here, but we'll accept here. Auction's the opposite. We're going to start here to get you back up to here. So it's almost flipping the strategy on its head and saying, let's start a bit lower. I'm not saying that's what you're going to accept, but it's the figure that will get people through the front door. And then the price drives up. So you then have a bidding window. So we'd be doing viewings on the property in the normal way. As you know, you still do all of your marketing or your professional marketing because you want people in.
Photographs.
Everything that you would do with a private treaty instruction, you would do with a modern method of auction. People view it in the same way. They go and have a look at it. There's no commitment at this point. Go and have a look at it. They can also then start looking at the legal pack. So every modern method of instruction has a legal pack created on instruction, and that will include the title documents, the regulated searches, and anything that we want the buyer to know before they start committing. So they're seeing information up front because we're going to ask them to commit. So they need to see that. So they can look at the legal pack, give it to their lawyer if they want to, go and get some advice on it. Go and view the house, and then if they decide, this is a house I want to proceed with, the bidding window will open. And this is done online. So this is done on the website. They create a profile, and they put their bid.
Or not, because my understanding is they can register and
you can watch it.
So a bit like eBay, I know we don't want to compare the two, but it's if nobody can grasp the concept, it is a little bit like that.
Yeah, you can watch it, you can register, so you can watch from the distance, you can have a look, and you don't have to bid at this point. When the bidding window opens, so say we've set the bidding to open on a Thursday at 2 o'clock, anyone that's watching it would be notified. The bidding window's open, and then they can, if they want to, then go and put their bids in.
Do you find, I feel like it's that first bid that's really important. You need someone to start the bidding going.
It's the first ones in because it gets people. So this is where the marketing's really important. First class marketing, get lots of people through the front door, preferably open days. Block viewings, create that intrigue. We don't want lots of people in the house at the same time. If you pass someone on the driveway on the way, if you're going in and someone's coming out, then that helps. Because then you straight away the psychology of you start thinking, well, okay, I want it a bit more now because someone else. I'm going to have some competition now. You can, and then this is where technology then sort of starts to really take over. So people put their offers in, their bids, and you're notified every time someone else does that. And then you can see what you've got to bid, so you can see then.
Can you see what price they've bid?
If it's modern method of auction, you can see what you've got to beat. So that's where I suppose it is a bit like eBay. Someone's at 950, I've got to it's 960.
But like eBay, if they've put a maximum bid in, you can't see their maximum bid.
No, it only shows the current highest bid. So current highest bid.
And then obviously you have a closing time.
So it could be 4 p.m.
because you can set that, so you can set that bidding window as
we would set that. We would review the interest. We can see how many people are registered, see how many people watched it. We know how many people came through on the open day. We're starting to get a feel for, you know, what's this competition going to look like? Yeah. And if you've got lots, you'd have quite a short window. Yeah. Because you just condense that into bid.
Yeah.
Like let's use that energy and that pace to drive the price up. Yeah. What's really quite exciting is that it's. Do you remember when eBay first launched and people would sit there and watch it and wait until right at the end? I was
one of those.
You think, what did you win or lose?
Westlife memorabilia.
so it's called sniper bidding, and you
edit that
out. You sit and watch. Yes. Someone could be at a certain figure, and then you offer in eBay terms, you offer £1 more. Yeah. But you do it in the last 2 or 3 seconds. It means you haven't got time to bid. Yeah. That's not what we want in this scenario, because actually we don't want people to wait. Remember, this is all about creating the highest value possible in this scenario. Exactly. So if somebody bids within the last minute of that bidding window, it extends it by another minute.
Oh, does it? Oh.
So then it becomes quite interesting. So I watched one last week, and we generated an extra £20,000.
Oh, wow.
Technically after the bidding window would have ended. Yeah. And it was just because people had sat and waited, I'll just see where this goes. And remember, at this point, they don't know what the reserve is.
No.
So they can get an idea, because there are.
Does he notify you when the reserve's been met?
Yes, it does. It does. But they won't know it. But it won't tell them that it's not met.
Do you think, just controversially, that would? So if I was watching and I realised that the reserve had been met, it would make me think, well, that's the price the client is the minimum. I'm not going to.
Potentially, if you're the only bidder. Yeah. If there's someone else, then because you're still in that, me and you are still competing for that property. So regardless of what the reserve price is, if we want it, we're still going to have to go head to head on it. So so if you do sit in the background and wait, and you outbid me by £1,000, I get another minute then to go. Hang on, I'm not having that. Yeah. I'll go another 1,000, and because I've done it in that window, it extends it again.
And is that in your small print that will happen?
Yeah, it explains it in the bidding terms. So no, that's and they'll see it on the screen. It'll say bidding window extended. It'll pop up, and they'll say bidding window extended. And then you'll be like, I'm not having that, and that's you get this real. That's where competition really starts, because we are on a time limit now, because we're now in the final minute.
Well, it's all that's the psychology part, isn't it? Really, how we as humans think.
Absolutely, and do you remember, this is just all about finding someone's maximum.
Yeah.
You know, the maximum or best and final.
Well, doing the best for the client, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely, you know, it's about maximising that value. So we're saying and the job of this is to find someone's genuine best and final. I think, I'm sure you've had scenarios in private treaty where you've had a best and final scenario, and you've delivered the bad news to someone that hasn't gone in. They say, well, I'll go another 10,000.
I've just had that on a £2 million house, and it was really stressful and very, it's against everything that we do as a business as well, so it puts us in a difficult position.
But then you have to call the client, and they always go, please.
And of course, they're if it's £100,000 more than the previous offer.
It's a lot of money. So it's the idea of best and final is that it's the figure that you're willing to pay for it and buy it, but it's also the figure that if someone else outbids you, you're happy to walk away and continue that.
And I think with best and final, I always say to people when I'm dealing with best and final, how you have to think about it is if that's the most prepared to pay for the property, then you can't be disappointed if you don't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the best, way to make them think, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about making sure that we're finding the best buyer for the seller in this. So we talk about the people being able to register as the auctioneer and you as the estate agent. We'll already know about these buyers.
Okay.
We'll know their position. We'll know
Can anybody bid, or do they need to be proceedable?
I suppose how we look at proceedable. So technically, a buyer that's in a chain can buy a modern method of auction property, but it's not ideal. No. Because you're reliant on someone else. Yeah. Because you're going to commit to a fixed time scale of 56 days, for example, and if your buyer can't do that, then you're going to end up breaching the contract. So.
But my understanding is that your team will have probably spoken to these buyers. So if anybody registers, unlike eBay, where you're self-sufficient in it, your staff are communicating with these buyers all of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll know about them. We'll also have proof of funds. anti-money laundering checks.
Do you have to do all of that before they bid?
All of that before.
So when they register to bid, they have to...
We collect that through the process. So we do the anti-money laundering check, we ask for their proof of funds. If they're purchasing with a mortgage, we want to get proof of the mortgage agreed in principle along with the funds. So by the time we're at that bidding window open, we know as much about this buyer as we possibly can, just like you would in private treaty.
So actually somebody who hadn't done all of that couldn't bid?
Can't register.
Okay.
No, so you can't bid until you've completed the registration process.
Okay.
So because we're going to take a reservation fee from the buyer, we have to know that buyer is, is proceedable and that we can engage with that client from an anti-money
laundering. So I guess that's where you can get somebody in a chain because they fulfilled what you've asked of them from their obligations point of view. They've given you a mortgage offer in principle, they've confirmed their chain, they've passed the AML check. But they're taking a big risk if they want to pay.
And it's their risk then. And what we would also do there is make sure the seller is aware.
Yeah.
We've got Sophie, she is in a small chain, she's sold to, a first-time buyer, so it is a small chain. They are going to bid. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And if the seller's like, that really doesn't work for us, then we'd be having that conversation. So, look,
or the seller might say, look, that's fine by me. And I'm just throwing this out there, you can correct me if I'm wrong. What if the seller says, actually, if they are successful, we're happy, it can go a little bit longer if it needs to?
Yeah, look, I mean, deadlines are there as they're a deadline, and they're a deadline, not a target. So it's there to protect everybody, but you have to use a bit of common sense as well. We also, a deadline it's a number in the contract. So if a seller said to us, I really want to sell to that buyer, and I'm happy to, rather than it be 56 days, let's do it at 70 days.
Yeah.
That's fine. The important thing here is that the seller has got a buyer that's committed, they've signed the agreements, they've put their money down, so that's my commitment. Everyone's happy that we've got a deadline to work
and that happens when the auction ends, you collect a reservation
fee. So modern method of auction, where it differs to let's say traditional auction, is that rather than paying your deposit and exchanging on the day, you're making a financial commitment, so you're paying a non-refundable reservation fee, and then you have a period of exclusivity then to complete on the transaction, which is when you're then going to get your mortgage.
Okay, excellent. So just thinking about the experiences that you've had, well, first of all, tell us a bit about BID, where you came from and how long BID have been around for.
Yeah, BID's only been around for 2 years, so we're right about now.
Okay.
So we're 2 years old. So thank you. We've grown quickly.
Yeah.
So my background is purely property. So I'm 23 years in the industry now. Started as most of us, started as a junior estate agent and then worked its way up. Yeah. And I launched BID because I thought there was space for more of an independent auction partner.
Okay.
We talk about being a partner, not provider. Yeah. And hopefully you work with us, so you see some of that.
Definitely.
We like to get really close to our partner agents, come into the branch, for example, educate the team, do training, make sure everything feels like it's yours. So any clients of yours, we're talking to them as you, not necessarily as BID. They won't really hear the word BID talked about. It will be Aston Knowles Auctions, Aston Knowles Secure Sale, and it keeps it there. So we're an extension of your team. And we're a growing team, and we're loving it.
Yeah, great. And in that 2 years now, what's your best experience of a property sale that you've conducted where maybe everybody was really surprised at the what you achieved?
Yeah, I think we've touched on the one example which we talk about a lot, because and it's not the only one that we've had a few of those now for you, but I think that one stuck out because it was so urgent. It was a really tricky situation to navigate, but by the time it came to us in sort of September, October time, and needed to be completed by January, and so you look at things like that, and I think any good property professional, whether you're an auctioneer or an estate agent, doesn't look at the transaction. They look at what's the problem that we've solved. And actually, that was a really big problem that we solved for him. But then we have other scenarios. One that springs to mind was an older couple selling a bungalow up here to go and live near their children down south, and they sold it by modern method of auction. They got the price they needed, the timescale they wanted, and they sent us a photo outside their new bungalow down in Devon.
That's nice, isn't it?
So then you start realising actually you are helping people.
Yeah, and I think for us, that high value one we had definitely got our client out of a tricky situation, so it did everything it needed to do, and it was a really good example. But also we had the best example for me of the transactions that we've done so far is that we had an elderly couple. We were the fourth agent in, and clearly the price was wrong from day one, but they'd come down and down and down, and it still hadn't sold. And it was a great house. We'd got video content. We'd done everything we could, but they got to a point where, you know, they needed to sell from a health point of view. They'd got a retirement apartment they'd already moved into. And so once we decided, and I think actually we got Kelly, you know, our partner, to go and see them, and that was great.
And she actually went to the house, didn't she?
Did, which I'm not sure if that's the norm, but she did that for us.
If it's going to help, and an elderly couple would probably respond better than that on a phone call. So that absolutely.
I think that face to face was really important. And then I think, you know, 4 weeks later they're done. They've switched to modern auction. They've achieved finally a sale. Yes, it wasn't at the price that they originally maybe thought they were going to get, but they were so happy when they moved, and it did everything. And it did it really quickly.
So have you seen a change in your office and your team from maybe when we first started talking about auction to where we are now?
Definitely. I think people can see the merits. I still think maybe people think of it as a plan B, and I'd really like to work on it as a plan A. But I think the team definitely see there's room for modern auction alongside private treaty for the right people at the right time, and definitely that we're using it more and we're talking about it more, and they're more confident to talk about it. But I think it's really important to constantly be reminding ourselves of why it's so useful.
Well, exactly. I mean, we've both been estate agents for a long time. We've got so many plates to spin. I think sometimes just putting yourself back in that situation and what's right for the client.
So what we've talked about the sellers and the advantages for the sellers. How do buyers react when they look at a property or they see a property online that they think, oh gosh, this is the house for us, and then they read, oh, it's in modern auction.
Read the small print and what's this modern method of auction? I think they're becoming more, I'm going to say comfortable, because it's becoming more familiar.
I think it is,
because more and more estate agents now are using other methods of sale because they have to, because of where private treaty is today. So if you go onto Rightmove now, you know, every few listings there'll be one. So I think it's becoming more familiar. That being said, the average buyer won't have done it before. So it's still new. So I think straight away there'll be that connotation of auction. Can I buy this? Can I buy this? And that's where I was educating the team in the branch as well, to be like, yes, you know, make sure you talk about it in a positive way, that don't scare them, or pass them to us and we'll have a conversation. But they'll have lots of questions at this stage, and it'll be around auction, timescale, the fee. Probably the biggest thing that people want to talk about. You know, I've got to pay this much in terms of the property value and the reservation fee. How does that work? And why actually we get what am I getting for my money? I'm giving you this reservation fee. What am I getting? Which is a fair question.
But they're getting almost the security that, you know, they secured the property and it can't be sold to somebody else.
Absolutely, and I think so. Security and peace of mind goes both ways. We talk a lot in our world about buyers pulling out, but actually sellers pull out and change their mind just as much. And actually, when we start talking to buyers and say, look, this is a committed transaction. The reason the seller's chosen this route of sale is because they're committed to selling the property. They're not testing the market and seeing how it's going. They want to sell it, or they need to sell it. So they're committed, and actually they've signed an auction agreement to say they're committed. So they've done their bit from a commitment. Your commitment is you've got to put your reservation fee down. Say, look, I'm committed to buying this house. If I change my mind, walk away, try and renegotiate later on, potentially I'm going to lose that money. So we're asking you to put that down as a commitment. But what you also know there, though, is that the seller in their agreement is as committed, because if they do change their mind and pull out, you'll get your money back. And they become liable for that fee. So whilst they're not putting money down, they are saying, if I do breach this agreement, it's going to cost me. So you've then got a committed seller and a committed buyer, and that's why the fall-through rate is so low. Got that 2 levels of commitment. But fee would be the biggest question that we have from a buyer.
And are there any other, let's say, any negatives, if you like, around the modern method of auction?
Well, I think with any kind of auction, there's a risk. So I think the risk is probably the downside from a buyer's perspective. I think from a seller's perspective, we talked about that and said, look, you're probably going to take a little bit less than what you would if you're private treaty. But from a buyer's perspective, it's risk. So it's about managing that risk, and the upfront information is really important there. That being said, there will still be some buyers that don't feel comfortable with risk. because maybe they've been burnt before, maybe they were buying something previously and it had structural problems, and it became to light after that it was unmortgageable. Now, obviously, in the private treaty world, that's fine because you just go, I'm not buying it anymore, and I've lost the cost of my survey, and I move on. But potentially in the auction world, there would be okay, well, I'm buying something now, I didn't know it I can't get a mortgage. What happens to my reservation fee? So in modern method of auction, you can add what's called caveats. And it's where a buyer could request for something to be added to the agreement. It says, if this happens, I could potentially have my money back. And we see that a lot with nervous buyers, especially maybe a mortgage buyer. And a caveat is designed for peace of mind. It's not designed to break the security. Remember, we've chosen this method of sale for security, but it's there to give peace of mind. So if you brought a property to us and it was relatively modern house, and the buyer was, and maybe the seller bought it 5 years ago with a mortgage, and the buyer said, I've been advised by my solicitor or my mortgage advisor to ask for an unmortgageable caveat, we'd be quite comfortable putting that in because we're pretty sure it's going to be okay. If you brought us one and it got cracks in the wall that we could put our hands through, then we'd be saying, probably not, because actually all that's going to happen is it's going to come back as a mortgageable, we have to refund the money, which isn't what the seller wants. So
and not what the modern auction is designed.
Absolutely. So caveats are there for peace of mind, not as a reason to give money back. And I think if you get those two, you start to eliminate some of the risk.
But is it fairly unusual to have to put caveats in the finding?
Absolutely. It is. But I think
we haven't dealt with anywhere. I think caveats have had to be put into the contract.
They're not necessarily the norm, but they're there if we need them. And I suppose from the seller's perspective, if you had two people that want to buy the house, one's asked for a caveat, one hasn't, you're going to go for that one because that suits your method as well. So, but we try and cover all back. Remember, this is not about being too restrictive. And the whole idea of modern method of auction is to widen the buyer pool. So if we have to look at caveats, we can.
Perfect. And so let's look into the future over the next few years. How do you see modern auction fitting into the UK property market?
I think it will continue to grow. I think while private treaty continues to have the issues it has and the challenges, it will continue to grow because for two reasons. The sellers can't always wait. In excess of 200 days now to go from for sale to complete, it doesn't work for everybody. So that will continue. Estate agents will need to have that in their armour to continue to win instructions. Because if your competitor in the town is offering it and you don't,
absolutely,
then you're going to lose instructions. So I think it will continue to grow. That being said, I do believe we'll see some form of reform into private treaty. We just don't expect it anytime soon, do we?
Well, it's definitely not on the radar anytime soon. Even if they draft a proposal, with the legislation it's got to go through, it's hopefully not in my working.
There was a lot of noise, a couple of months ago about it, but it did feel like it was noise. And we're going to change it. But then when you start looking into it, this isn't happening anytime soon, and that means that sellers will need something that's more secure and it's faster.
And the nice thing is giving them options now. A lot of people don't like the traditional private treaty method of sale. They've been stung before, maybe. So being open-minded to another option is. It's
the same for buyers as well. When we actually sit down and have a proper conversation with the buyer,
I think it's a good idea.
And I think it's great because they, especially if they've maybe been gazumped or they've been let down or something's happened, they're willing to do it. So.
And so, on that note, if a homeowner listening today is wondering whether modern auction could work for them, what 3 questions should they ask themselves before deciding how to sell their property?
The first one we've touched on is why am I selling the property? But not kind of the top layer of why, because I want to move. I want to sell it. Like really dig down. It's what's the real reason I'm selling this property, and then get that really clear.
Because if, for example, it's because I've seen something else I want to buy, then speed is therefore
absolutely.
important.
So when we've got that reason, then we can dig down. And I think the next one there is when do I need to be moved by? And these are actually questions we would tell any estate agent to ask a client. Why are you selling? And when do you need to be moved by? Because the answer to those 2 questions will start to point to which method of sale will be right for them. Because on the flip side, if a seller says, why am I moving? Well, I fancy a move. I want to see if I can get this price.
Which we
I'll
hear
move.
sometimes.
Exactly, I'll put it on the market. If someone's willing to give me my price, I'll move. Or they'll sell those words. If it sells, it sells.
Absolutely. Great. The golden words.
If they say that, and then when you go, okay, when do you need to be moved by? Whenever. Well, private treaty is the best way to sell that home, not modern method of auction. So that would be the first 2 questions, and then the third one would probably be would be related to price. What do I need to sell this house for? And the language very important there. Not what do I want to sell it for? What do I need to sell it for? And they're probably 2 different figures. And that would be the conversation that we would be having with the client if you referred it over to us.
Yeah.
Because if we get the right answers to there, potentially it's perfect.
Yeah.
If we start to get crosses in the boxes, then the right thing to do for the seller is to say, this isn't the method of sale for you.
So the good thing, I think, about the bid and the partnership that we have is we feel that we're doing the right thing by the client. We're not forcing people to go down the modern auction route. You know, if it's right for private treaty, we go private treaty, and vice versa, and I feel like you support that as well.
It's not right. Nobody wins in that scenario. You know, seller it won't sell.
No.
So seller doesn't win.
Yeah.
You don't win.
No.
You've invested in marketing and time. We don't win. We've invested in the legal pack and time.
Absolutely.
So nobody wins. So if a property or a seller situation isn't right for modern method of auction, just be honest with people.
Yeah. So thanks, Dan, for coming in today. I think that was really useful and insightful, and I'm sure there's a lot there for people to take on board.
Just a bit.
Yeah, and definitely, you know, a food for thought in terms of their options if they do decide to sell and what method they want to use. But of course, if anybody has any more questions or wants to know anything further, they can contact us here.
Yeah.
They can reach out to you directly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
On LinkedIn,
on LinkedIn, Instagram,
Twitter,
Instagram, all of the platforms.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks again, Dan.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.